welcome back to another hook and chain, exciting blood drippy episode of the Film Alchemist podcast. A very special episode today. We are the podcast that takes the movies we love, breaks them apart to find out what gives them their magic. Definitely, well, not really sex magic, maybe drug magic. We'll have to talk about it. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my friend, co-host, and just guy who loves boxes.
Alex Dandino.
All right, before today's exciting talk about the brand fucking new Hellraiser movie, a little bit of business, people. It is official. We're on Patreon. That's right, patreon.com/FilmAlchemistPod. The only way to make sure that you can get every single episode this month. 31 pods were recorded. 3 of them are over on our Patreon. We've got Train to Busan, The Eyes of the Mother, and a feature-length commentary on 13 Ghosts. You know you wants that. You know you wants that, and you want to come support the pod and join the club. We greatly appreciate those of you who already support us, and we also appreciate those of you who are about to as well. Something free and easy you can do to help the pod. Make sure you leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. Everywhere and anywhere you find the pod, put them everywhere. Blanket that shit out, right? Like, throw the misery out into the world is what we've learned today. Also, you can subscribe to the YouTube Film Alchemist. You can email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Find us on all your socials. Share the shit out of all these episodes. We appreciate it. All right. Hellraiser. I have to say I was a little worried when this movie started. Not because of the movie, but because we have been on a long, hairy journey through the Hellraiser franchise. Hills and valleys, right? Hellraiser, my favorite movie of all time. So I was extra invested in this film, right? I wanted it so much to be good. Some of the early reviews I heard were like, meh. I have to say, I thought this movie fucking ruled. This is a wonderful Hellraiser. It kind of does its own thing. It beefs up the mythology. It fixes a lot of the things that have been wrong with the franchise for several movies. I honestly couldn't be more pleased. Is it Hellraiser 1? No. But what is, right? This is a fucking fun, awesome, blood-soaked ride. So, Alex, opening thoughts on Hellraiser.
Yeah, it surprised me. The trailer, I can tell you right now, I texted you after the trailer came out like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, am I wrong? But that trailer kind of sucked, right? Like, it was like, I
didn't love the trailer either. I was a little worried.
I was not super stoked once I saw the trailer. I'm like, this feels like it's gonna miss the point a little bit for me. Because, like, the thing I latch onto with Hellraiser, and I think I've said this on the pod, like, my dad is always like fascinated by the fact that we watch these movies. Like, how can you watch that stuff? I'm like, it's cool, man. He's like,
turn a candle on in your sex dungeon.
My parents are not like, because my parents are not horror film people, but they like, but I was just like, it's about, like, how can you watch that kind of stuff and not let it sort of like.
How did you watch Society, Donna? Maybe don't throw stones from your glass sex dungeon.
Well, poor Donna. But yeah, it was one of those things, like, I was like, all right, hopefully it's just like, trailers tell you like 10% about what's going on. And I can tell you from watching the trailer now, having watched the movie, yeah, like 10% of the movie is in the trailer.
Good trailers, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of the scourge of the movie industry right now is too many trailers that show you too much shit. This one was kind of perfect. It gave you the taste, but it didn't really spoil the journey, right? So one of the things I loved about this movie, it did several things really, really well, right? It wouldn't be a Hellraiser movie if it didn't have some warts on it. But overall, I think the good this film does so dramatically outweighs anything I didn't love.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the one thing you can look at this movie particularly that separates it from the others, not the others of like, I would say like the first 2 are different than the like preceding, how many? Like 5 or 8, 7, however many they are?
Yeah,
either way.
10. This is the 11th.
Right, so like what separates this Hellraiser from the other sequels, and I mean, because like this is not a sequel to anything. This is literally, I think that's a good way to put it. Pocket universe Hellraiser. What is different about this is the exploration of the mythology. It's like that is much more. It's much less sexual. Like that is not part of the gag at all, really. And it leans a little, like, that was the thing that I didn't like about the trailer, and that I was like not really looking forward to, is like I liked sort of the otherworldliness of the Cenobites, and the fact that like that pain versus pleasure type vibe is like hard to distinguish for them because they've seen it all now. What I loved was how pleasantly surprised I was by the leaning into that portion that they didn't do, but that the part that they did. It was a really, really good line that was skirted, and just overall, I thought the movie did exactly what I wanted it to, as far as like a reboot or new Hellraiser, essentially.
Yeah, so let's kind of go element by element, right? So one of the critiques I kept hearing about the movie is that the human characters were the great weakness of the film, right?
Right.
I don't think I would argue that point, right? They're clearly the weak link of the film is kind of our human journey. Sure. That said, I think it's only the weakest part of the film because everything else is so exceptionally done. By the end of the film, and I watched it twice now to make sure I was really sharp for this one, I actually think Riley was a really fascinating character, right?
I think so too.
Do the others get a lot of legs to do a lot? Not necessarily, right?
No.
Is Voight kind of my least favorite thing in the film? Absolutely. But I thought Riley's journey, right? She has this, she's a very messy character, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the quibbles you could have with this movie is that it's specifically telling you that if you have a friend or relative who is struggling with life issues, definitely throw them out of your house and don't follow them, all right? The journey of the movie is do not have sympathy for people who are struggling. I think that might not be as what they intended per se. But I think Matt would agree with me 100%, right? But what did you make of our human meat gallery in this movie, as it were?
Yeah, I think that's the way you put it was best. Like, in a movie of things that are pretty good, like, the worst thing is, like, just good. Like, yeah. To me, like, humans are always going to be a weakness in a movie like this because, like, they're going to make questionable, like, it's the horror movie conundrum. And we deal with this a lot, but Hellraiser particularly, it's always one of those things like, why are you still there? Like, that's always like one of those things that, like, it's a legitimate question a lot of the time. You're like, what are you still doing there? Like, why are you even involved with this anymore? Like, why do you continue to put yourself in a situation that clearly is like otherworldly, literally? But to me, I loved Riley. Like, that character was really cool. Like, and I was a little unnerved at first just because when they do these, it reminded me of like, and again, I don't know why I was unnerved by it because The Evil Dead was so good, but like, it's one of those things where the auspice of drug addiction and that like kind of guise of like, oh, they're recovering, that bit to me goes one of two ways. It either goes the Evil Dead way where it's not like focused on it all and it's literally just like
well, that became like this super subtext, right? With which the possession element becomes this kind of extra nefarious hidden element because how can you believe this person?
Right. How can you believe? Like, that's like the bit, and that's the part that I liked about the way Hellraiser carried it out.
That's probably one of the best versions of that for sure.
Yeah, and Hellraiser skirts that a little bit, which, and again, they don't lean very heavy into like this addiction scenario. Like, what works for The Evil Dead is that not only that, but also it's literally the reason they're going to the cabin. You're like, okay, cool. Like, there's a reason to go to the cabin. They're just like, oh, let's go and fuck in the woods. Like, it's not that kind of thing. This was literally like, oh, she's down on her luck. She's had a rough life. She's doing these things. Like, but it never like becomes part of the plot. It just becomes the device of, oh, Riley needs help. Riley always needs help. That's why Matt goes out to help her. Like, that's why the concept of her causing problems and like what she's doing by like continuing to pursue the configurations, that is what makes the movie worth watching, because everyone is deciding whether or not they actually want to believe her, like till the very end of the movie almost.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because Hellraiser 1 spoiled us with the Julia Frank combo.
Yeah,
it's it's so good and it's so intimate. It's just really wonderful.
It's super psychosexual and weird, and like that's a perfect.
It's kind of this like, destruction of an ideal family unit. Like, so that was just really well done, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think in this movie though, right, the addiction isn't used to, because this was my fear at the start of the movie, right? As it started, I was like, they are really daring me to hate this lady, right?
Yeah.
And in a weird way, I think that kind of works for Hellraiser, right? Is that these people who are pushing beyond, right? Because one of the things I enjoy about the film is that this isn't just a fucking, sex pervert adventure, right? Anyone who has a taste that has gone too far, right? As I'm watching the movie and I was like, don't take the fucking pill. Like, she picked him up off the ground.
Yep.
Sadly, in my old days, I remember moments like that, right? Where you're like, I'm done. And then you're like, I can't be done, right? As I'm watching this, right, I'm trying to quit smoking, right? And I'm like eating bad food today. I was like, all right, like maybe I shouldn't be judging so fucking hard, right? Addiction is a really hard thing to balance, right? But then watching her take those pills, you're so fucking it's a gut-wrenching emotional moment, right? Which shows that I'm connected to the character. Watching Matt have to suffer for trying to go find her was brutal. It was fucking brutal. And then when the boyfriend says, I told you not to go, as if once again your shit has brought him into this, she immediately runs to her artist boyfriend's house and just mauls him as soon as the doors open.
Yeah.
So her reaction is, I think my brother's dead, let's fuck. And I was like, that is a fucking tough hurdle, right? So you're sitting there like, I'm pretty mad about this, right? Like, I don't love this character. But then you're thinking, she is kind of this new version of the Frank archetype, right? This person who is struggling so much and is in so much turmoil emotionally, right? That her response to everything is a quick fix of some kind of physical pleasure, right? Be that drugs, be that booze or cigarettes or sex, right? So it's kind of in keeping with her addictive personality. I thought by the end of the movie, they weren't bludgeoning her as quote-unquote junkie. I don't know if that's like what people are called anymore. But they show that she's just this person in this modern world is just in the fucking, she's in the whirlwind.
Well, I thought what was interesting actually is I wouldn't even say it's a matter of pleasure seeking for Riley. Like, Riley's reasoning for doing all those things is actually pretty similar to like the Cenobites, which is to numb everything. Like, you're so numb to everything going on.
You're
so, like,
seeking it so much that it doesn't even help.
Exactly. Like,
that
so
temporary
to me,
respite. Yeah.
That, like, I really, really liked that was the take on Riley's whole, like, not addiction, but just her whole character in general, is that she is constantly looking to numb what's going on in the world around her.
Yeah.
And, like, by the time we get to the end, she's so engaged. Like, she's so a part of it. And I mean, like, this is another thing I really liked about this one is everyone is morally ambiguous in this movie. There's absolutely nobody who you're like,
I mean, the roommates seem pretty cool.
Roommates were fine, but like at the same time, it's also one of those things you're like, well,
her brother is a judgy bastard. But
but
that happens
it's her brother.
sometimes when you deal with difficult family members.
Absolutely.
It's a little more personal, right? There's all these open wounds.
I mean, like, again, there's never a time where someone's tortured in this movie. I'm like, oh, finally they got theirs. Like, that is like not really like, even Voight, I was just like, I don't give a shit at that point. But like,
I was actually mad that Voight didn't get it worse, right? We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. But like, there's no character in this movie that got Cinnabit that I was like, well, that's like unfortunate. Like, everyone.
Nora? You didn't feel bad for Nora?
Oh, that's what I meant. No, that's what I was talking.
I thought you were saying you were glad to see them get chewed up.
No. There was no one in this movie that I was like, oh, finally this one got theirs. No, like Nora, that Nora scene, we'll get to that. But like,
my God, what a but see, even Nora, right? A really small character, right? She just has a couple of those moments where she's always trying to be this kind of gentle respite for Riley, right? Mm-hmm. And when fucking artist douche is in there like, hey, let's have some bourbon and these dusty old glasses, like, hey man, we don't drink around Riley. And it's this kind of cutting like, you should fucking know this because you were in the process with her, right?
Right.
And I was like, her kind of wanting to defend Riley was really charming, right? The boyfriend going to save Riley, knowing that she might have somehow been indirectly responsible for directly responsible for Matt's death. Let's not be coy. Right. You could argue that like she was kind of put in an unwinnable situation.
Right.
She made a mistake and paid for it, right? So there are these moments, but Colin like trying to come get her, right? And try to talk to her. He listens to her like, hey, I found this book about this ancient god and configuration in this box. And he's like, okay, maybe we just go home and like figure it out. Like, I really related to them as like these nice kind of protective characters, right? Yeah. So I thought for how little they were asked to do in the story, or how, I guess they didn't get a lot of chances to like really delve into those characters.
No.
I found myself really emotionally attached to them still.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes from, for me, when being tortured to me is like this is something this movie does that, like, I haven't seen it this way in a very long time. And this, again, we've watched fucking 10 of these movies at this point.
Every single one of them, yeah.
Like, and like even the shows, by the way, that I'm not on, I still watch these movies, by the way. Like, because that's what podcasting's all about.
That's a true artist right there, a little artiste.
But like, this is the first one where really, like, the torture itself seems very personal. Like, I think that's a really fascinating thing about this one and why I think it, when we get to ranking, we can talk about it, but why it finds itself in the upper echelons of these Hellraiser movies, because like the first two do have sort of more personal vibes to it. And this is the same way. And I really appreciated that. Like, nothing about this movie felt like it was, we got to get a movie out. I think that's a really important thing about the Hellraiser franchise, is as we went on, it really felt like it's on, it really felt after,
oh
like,
my God, yeah.
Inferno, they were just like, guys, we gotta get a movie
just
out
throw
this year.
Pinhead in this other thing we don't know what to do with.
This is the first
letter.
one. This one felt really like, like David Bruckner and Ben Collins and Luke Petrowski were like, we have to make a really good Hellraiser movie that like says exactly what we think about Hellraiser as it applies to the 21st century.
Right. And that's the thing too. So to address the criticism again, but the second time I watched it, I found my empathy for Riley to be so much higher, right? At the end, when we see her pursuing this thing, thinking she can erase a mistake she made with her brother, that works for me. I thought all of this for the characters worked for me. Not you, Voight. Not you. I thought it was wonderful. So I don't really, for me, that complaint didn't register.
Same.
The second thing they kind of added to this, right, that I really loved. I love the new mythology of the box.
Me too.
It's the only one in the world. It's been forgotten until now. What did you make of the new box, right? We've got 6 configurations. The box marks a victim, right? Because everyone who opens it, a secret little blade pops out and slashes them. Then they're marked. The Cenobites come to get them. What did you... I actually wrote this down, right? Because the box has 6 configurations, right? The Leviathan configuration for power, the Lore configuration for knowledge, the Laudorant configuration for love, the Lament configuration for life, liminal sensation, Lazarus resurrection.
Right.
I thought this was a fucking brilliant addition to the mythology because on twofold, right? One, I love the idea that people who aren't just fucking perverts can still find themselves drawn to this thing, right? Because now this movie almost becomes a great lead-in for tomorrow's movie, The Wishmaster. This is a be careful what you wish for movie, right?
Yeah.
And
yes.
I like the idea that there's all these different gifts at the end besides just getting your body pilfered.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that because I actually was in the... I don't remember if I texted it to you, but I was like, isn't it odd that this is like turning into like a Wishmaster type thing?
Yeah.
Like there is this like really interesting Wishmaster element to the box now because like, I loved this addition to the configurations. Like awesome. I like that it's not just... Good. It's not just some box that, sizzles and zaps and then they show up. Like there's mechanics to it and there's an actual like lore to it. And I really like that the level of configuration is also, again, it's pursuant to the person, the configuration of power, the configuration of lament, like those kinds of things. Like I love when Pinhead at the end says to like Riley, like you've chosen the lament configuration. Like, yeah, damn, that is cool.
That is fucking cool. That like kicked me in the balls, and I was like, that is fucking perfect.
That is so cool.
On 2 levels, right? One, it's a throwback to the original lament configuration. The movie ends with the box back where it began, right?
Right.
Love that. That is for life, right? What is life but to have lament and regret, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. The other fucking subtly scary thing about that, you literally cannot make a choice.
Right.
If you choose nothing, you've made a fucking choice, right? You've chosen the lament configuration.
Right.
I thought that was fucking brilliant, right?
It was awesome.
It also
there's
plays
always
into
a
how
choice.
people pursue how they get the blood, right? You know, someone who has powers, like, I'll just fucking throw these people,
Right.
you know,
Well,
to this cube. She's trying to, like, I'll use it to kill it kills Cenobites.
Okay,
That
yeah,
was a
that was
fucking
another
weird
thing
addition.
that fucking blew my mind. I was like, wait, so the Cenobite can be offered up? And then I was like, man, we should go back through these movies and be like, how easy would it have been to just fucking ice these dudes?
I wonder, because this is the other thing I love about this addition to the box, right? By making it you have to go through the configurations to get an audience with God, right? Leviathan himself, and ask for your boon. The idea that of trying to get these people to go through what it's really doing, right? This one box. Because in part 2, we saw that, you know, Dr. Dickhead had like hundreds of these things. Right. He was a collector of them, right? Some false, whatever. What this does is by chasing this thing, right? You see the web of misery and despair this thing spreads out through so many people. How many people are affected by this one box just being present? This one fucking billionaire pervert has spread so much despair and misery throughout the land, right? Even when he chooses liminal, right? The sensation. That is probably the weakest moment of the movie, right? Yeah. I choose sensation. All right, you get this weird, you know, accordion in your chest.
Nerve-ending accordion in your chest.
You still have to live, and you're still shaving because you have a stubble after 6 years. That was fucking lame.
Wasn't super good for me. I was just
that was lame on the highest order, but it panned off really well in the end. So again, I forgive. Yeah. But the additions to the box, the kind of weird thing, right, is Riley somehow is this adept ninja where the blade never pokes out and stabs her. It just becomes a weapon. But this is the thing, right? We see Pinhead adjust the rules of the box. So at one point, makes the box stab Riley and says, we have your blood, we'll collect when we want, right? Feed the box, get those other two, right? You or them, your choice. So she adjusts. Pinhead accepts the fucking Cenobite as offer, right? That's not something the box has to do, right? Pinhead's playing a game. And I think that the idea that the puzzle box is actually a game and a labyrinth of itself that puts us in all of these ethical scenarios to see how we react. Yeah. I honestly, I think the box edition is the best part of this movie.
I think so too.
It's like a brilliant addition to the mythology.
What I like is that, like the box becomes the vessel for choice rather than the box being the actual thing itself. Like, because like, for instance, like when Voight stabs Nora, for instance, you're that, because I was that part, I was like, that seems weird because like he's not in command of the box. Like, I don't understand what that was. Like, okay, but maybe this is part of what we're talking about, which is Pinhead altering the rules. Is it's much more, it is about not the user of the box, but it's about the feeling, like the vibe of it. And like, I don't know. It was a very,
you're also specifically attacking them on an emotional despair level instead. Right. Because we always laugh, right? By like part 2, 3, whatever. Pinhead's just like, Jesus Christ, no more deals.
Yeah. Pinhead is for sure.
You touch the box, I come for the flesh.
So
that's the whole
this.
deal. The fact now that Pinhead has this box with which it's a blank canvas for Pinhead to create whatever misery he wants or she wants, right? The Hell Priest. I thought that was fucking awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome.
Such a great choice, right? Even when she's going to throw the fucking box in the leg, it's like, no, we want you to finish.
Yeah. That I think is, okay, I don't know. This might be my favorite like part of the whole like scenario in which they've used the box is when she basically chooses Riley and says, you finish this. There are two configurations left. I was like, okay, is Riley that selfish where she might just fucking lure these guys in? Like, is she gonna be this fucking is she gonna be that kind of bitch? You know, like, is she gonna end up being the Julia? And like, just fucking
that was her great redeeming quality, right? Is that while she is a person who has sought these extra experiences for comfort, whatnot, she has this kind of moral character at her core, right? Which I thought was a redeeming quality.
It was really cool.
But in that moment, right, I wrote it down as Pinhead says, "Not yet. Accept the pain you have wrought." I thought that was a perfect thing, right? She's like, I didn't ask for this, but you did. Right? We have such gifts. Our gifts are unimaginable. I don't want your gifts, but you do. Right? Pinhead's just calling out, like, you're not here by
you absolutely
accident.
do. Yeah, it's not. I'm not called to you by accident. Like, you've already sought this kind of
By saying yes to the robbery and this and that, you have gotten close enough to dangers, right? I have led you to this point in your life.
I think what I like
Pinhead
is that
calling her out like that was just awesome.
What I like about the box itself is that it's not this like it's like we were talking about, like, it's what happens with, like, you'll see with, like, Wishmaster 2 and 3, and then, like, the later Hellraisers, it's like the box just sort of happens to exist, and people
the box doesn't really have any kind of
I like that I like that this goes back to the first one, which is like, it takes effort to have this box. Like, you must command it. You like, it is not a thing that just anyone can, like, happen upon. Like, you must hold it and command it yourself. Like, that's a really important thing that I think gets lost in the later Hellraisers, and just, like, movies that have this kind of iconography, like those little pieces. Like, this is an important piece of horror iconography. To treat it with such disrespect of, like, oh, anyone could find this shit. That is, like, the problem in
Inferno. It's a lamp. What?
Yeah. What? No, it is not. Like,
well, it gets back to part 2, right? Where it's like, it's not hands but desire that calls it. That always is really stuck to my head as the important element. And on that bridge, right, is Riley says, "I've done enough," and Pinhead says one of my favorite lines in the movie: "Enough is a myth." And if that is not the goddamn thematic importance of every Hellraiser story,
absolutely,
I don't know what is. Right? Riley knows this. Right? With her habits, right? There is never enough for any human being. Why do we work jobs to buy more shit we need? Why do people cheat on their wives, right? Like, this is all we do, right? Is we want more because there's something empty inside of us, right? Like that box, we have a hole right in the middle of us. And when you fall into that, who knows what happens? I thought this was awesome.
Totally.
My second favorite thing that this movie added, it has been... And I like the Cenobites in part 3, personally. But if you go from movie 4 through 10, we have not had essentially a good Cenobite since part 3. And some people would even say part 2.
These are some good-ass Cenobites, man.
This movie has... I have a soft spot in my heart for Hellraiser 1 Cenobites, obviously.
Sure, of course.
This movie has the best Cenobites by miles. They're fucking awesome. The designs are fucking great. I like that some of the Cenobites have agency of their own to actually go catch people and torture them in their own
gasp.
ways. They have a reason to be there rather than, like, Pinhead's backing band, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my God. The Cenobites in this movie fucking rule.
Yeah, like the Gasp, the one who's, like, got her own vibe. Like,
she's like really into it when she piano wires the skin off. Oh, and that part's great, right? Because Riley's now chosen. She knows that artist douche betrayed her, right?
Right.
Something that's pretty telegraphed. Especially you watch it the second time, and you're like, if someone didn't catch this, I don't know what to tell you. She stabs him, right? Like, I choose him. And she's smiling the whole time, right? As she grabs Colin, she's smiling, right? As she says, you could choose another. She's smiling. And this is the other subtext of the box, right? Is that it allows them so many more opportunities to watch humans degrade themselves spiritually.
Exactly. That's like the true pleasure for the Cenobites.
The Cenobites are fucking awesome, right? The one that I really loved was the crying Cenobite, right? The gigantic, midnight dark one that's hands open up.
So
my God. So fucking awesome.
So good, man. I loved it.
Yeah, they were really, really good ones, right? Even the one at the end that looks a little generic Silent Hill one, the face cover
the
rips on.
What's that one called? The Gasper? No, the Gasp is the girl. I don't know all their names.
I just know they were wonderful.
I'm looking at the names right now. Okay, so there's obviously the Chatterer.
Yep.
And then there's the Weeper.
Oh my God, when Nora's blood spilled down on his chattering teeth, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, give me all that.
Yeah. The Weeper.
Yeah.
I don't know which is
that
the
was
Weeper's,
the giant
Weeper's
midnight
the
dark
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Asphyx, I think, is the one with the skin across the face, the Silent Hill.
Yeah, because it's like Yeah. No, I mean, this is
so good. That's
the
top,
thing, right?
That's top-notch design.
Yeah,
man.
Pinhead is the fucking marquee player, right?
Yeah.
He's the one who, he's on the VHS covers. That was the first image we all saw. That is the thing that, like, we are there to see. The fact that, again, we just went, Like, even Hellraiser Inferno, which I love. The laziest, worst Cenobites, unless you want to jerk off to Thanos the Sorcerer. Terrible Cenobites. And it only got worse from there. The Cenobites in the rest of the series are essentially just some kind of, like, mask that looks like pulled skin. Hellraiser Judgment tries a little bit, but not to great effect.
I think
it was so nice to have these fucking hell creatures abound.
Well, there's just, like, legitimate design put in. Like, the makeup
designs.
Effects in this movie are fucking incredible.
I mean, just
like,
perfection to me.
There's legitimate design elements put into this. Like, I thought I was going to be a little upset. It's like, man, there's not enough leather. Because that was, like, actually one of the notes. Like, there's not a lot of leather in this movie.
Dude, Pinhead's dress is skinned.
I know. Okay,
I thought that was awesome.
I was just about to say this. Like, my favorite design element was literally, like, the leg skin that turns into the dress. Like, god damn, that is genius.
I mean, leather gives off the horniness vibes, which Hellraiser was built upon. That is a foundational core of Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Honestly, this one gets a little deeper into the mythology of what these bodies are
totally.
for. And I was cool with it,
and Pinhead's got the lockbox in her neck. Like, it's fucking rad. Okay, speaking of necks, the Nora torture scene, that might be one of the most brutal things I've ever seen in a movie, is when Pinhead, like, threads her vocal cords.
Yeah.
Holy shit,
You know what's
man.
awesome is that one is so affecting, but it's such a small fucking moment compared to all the violence we've imbibed in Hellraiser.
Dude, it's fucking...
I was like, why is Leviathan so into fucking sewing pins? Like, I don't understand. I don't know.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the he saw that the first time, right? Like the first fucking Renaissance tailor's like, a pin to hold my cloth, and Leviathan's just like, dear God, thank you.
you just like to imagine in his off hours, Leviathan is
I don't know what Leviathan
just darning socks.
Yeah, what does Leviathan spontaneously coming in his pants look like? But that moment it happened.
He's just darning socks, waiting for the next config. All right,
quick, use those pins to make me socks to bust in. Leviathan out. Right? I'll show you pleasures if you don't give me jerk socks. Yeah, but that scene in general, right? Because this is something that we both loved in the first one, is how the hell would emerge from whatever environment you're in.
Yeah.
This movie does a pretty good job, right? Like, the walls open up. When that van starts expanding, I mean, that was Chill City. That scene is fucking righteous. I could not get enough of that. I loved it.
Yeah. The Nora scene, it hits all the beats. Like, it's probably it's like the second best Pinhead monologue, which are few and far between. I liked that there's not a lot of talking from the Cenobites. Like,
no,
they're just
in my notes though, I pretty
creeps.
much wrote down every single line of Pinhead's, and I'm like, that's awesome.
And I like that, but I like that, like, she picked, we picked her spots, man. She knew when to talk, and she knew when, like, again, all of it is so, and I'll be honest with you, like, to me, I told Andrea this, like, I was like, my wife does not want to watch this movie, but I was watching it this morning because, like, we took our kid to school, and then we were watching, like, I was having my coffee and, like, watching the movie, and she heard me from upstairs because I was watching in the living room, and I was just like, God damn it, when does this fucking movie start? This is, like, we were, like, probably around the third configuration. It's like, Jesus Christ, I'm so bored. What is happening in this movie? But I was talking with her, and I realized what has happened is, like, I've been so desensitized over the last, like, month of watching, like, bad Hellraiser movies that literally, like, ignite immediately, and it's like an 80-minute marathon of just, like, I don't know, there's some whips and chains, and somebody's about to get flayed. You're like, cool.
Hellraiser movies that didn't quite reach their potential, for sure.
Right. This one, I realized the reason I was like, God, I'm so bored is because, like, I'm used to, like, an 80-minute jerk fest.
You're like, take your glass off. You're like, what the fuck is that? A first act? What the fuck is that doing here?
I was like, this is very curious. This
I can't see real good. Is that a first act?
This whole pacing thing they're trying to pull off.
Are we paying overtime for this shit? I don't know.
It was like one of those things where it's like, okay, so, and I had to stop, like, halfway through and, like, pause for a second. I was like, I think I'm bored. And Andrea was like, I think you're just used to them sucking. Like, why don't you just finish watching it?
You didn't like Smoking Lady getting it? Serena?
Oh, no, I loved that part. Like, but again, I was just like, yeah, I get it.
I'm sorry. Save your fucking breath for screaming. Oh, my God.
I was like,
dude, that was great.
Yeah, like, but see, that is the beginning of, like, things getting good. Like, literally, it felt like a 50-minute preamble of, like, I get it. But I realized
was curious when we didn't see Matt get hooked.
Yeah.
I was like, why a Hellraiser movie that doesn't
Are we
show a
pulling
fucking
back?
maiming? What?
Yeah.
I was a
I
little
think,
worried.
Again, that's what it is I was just like, because it was that one, and then the one in the prologue, I was like, God damn it, are we going to do a whole fucking movie where they're not going to show us any of this? Because
Okay.
like, there's no reason to do a Clive Barker thing if we're not going to
I'll
fucking
say
go
this
into
though, there's something about this creep praying to Leviathan, right? Like, give me a boon, give me an audience. And in the background, you just see that guy hanging.
it. Oh no, it was great.
I was like, that was awesome, right?
Dude,
But yeah,
it was the way to start a fucking flick, for sure.
that was cool. At that one, I didn't even feel like I needed it, right? Like I had the
it was
premonition
one of those-
that was coming back.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where I was like, why do I feel this way? I was like, oh, it's because this is a good one, and like the last 8 have not been entertaining at all. Like
The last ones have sunken so into the what can we do to the flesh, they rejected the flesh of the mind, right?
Exactly.
This one really hits you on all levels. All right, so the
was
Nora
real
scene
good.
is a great place to introduce our new Pinhead. It's always hard when you take a horror icon and you recast them. And what I love about this movie is they didn't do some kind of watered down Doug Bradley version.
No,
This is an entirely new Hell Priest, right? This is operating by its own rules, has a distinct personality. The way that Pinhead accesses this movie is so different than the way that Doug Bradley's Pinhead did. And don't get me wrong, I'm not here to slander. Doug Bradley is still the
Doug
best
Bradley's
Pinhead.
amazing. Yeah, he's
still
great.
the guy that I'll always think of. That VHS cover is how I'll always think. The voice was fucking majestic. I gotta say though, I think it's like a 1A, 1B.
I
and
think
Jamie
so too,
Clayton
man.
is fucking entered the pantheon of great fucking
Jamie
horror movie monster.
Jamie Clayton's characterization is so like where there's this sort of like majesty to Doug Bradley's, and not just because he's British, but like this like majesty to Doug Bradley's presentation as Pinhead.
Yeah.
The off-puttingness of Jamie Clayton's like just like general pleasure for the proceedings. Like that is like
The tear is
fucked me
so
up,
much
dude.
more intimate and seemingly
Absolutely.
gives joy to Pinhead, right?
Totally.
We talked about Doug Bradley by the end felt like a guy who's like, oh, God. Like he's
Quit
like, I
playing
gotta
with this
turn off
box,
my
goddammit.
Xbox to go fucking find another pervert. Great. Like, I'm going to have to fucking power wash my leather and get through the sex dungeon again.
Great, I'm getting out of my robe and slippies for this.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's why Pinhead was great, right? Is he is this otherworldly being looking down on us like, you fucking animals. What are you doing down here? Why are you doing all this weird shit, right? He had this, like, judgment from on high thing. There is something, what Jamie brought, right, in that first scene with Nora, right? That, like, what do you pray for? It doesn't seem as if it's something scary. It seems as if Pinhead is legitimately interested
Curious.
by what she is witnessing. And I was like, oh my God. And then she's like, what would that look like? A joyful note without change. There's no music in that. And then proceeds on to this, your body can be made to feel everything. You're going to feel it all by its end. And that extra, in this movie, Pinhead feels invested in collecting these prizes for
I agree.
Leviathan. I thought that was wonderful. Jamie Clayton fucking knocks this movie out of
It's
the park.
incredible. It's an incredible performance.
Just fucking brilliance. Because that, honestly, I was a little worried. Not because Jamie Clayton, but as because anytime you recast, right? When they redid Freddy Krueger, the next time they'll redo Freddy Krueger, when they recast, even when Michael Myers got redone by Rob Zombie, people are like, that's not the same. I hate it. It's hard to recast such iconic characters, right? And even Revelations and Judgment, like they tried. So we'd seen other Pinheads, but they were not up to snuff,
this
right?
was like
Jamie Clayton made it her own character that stands besides Doug Bradley's. Yeah.
There's artistry in this performance that like it, and I think the really important thing is it's not mimicry. It is not the same Pinhead. It's
Completely
a
its own.
completely different iteration. And again, like it is this like weird. You're just waiting for her to crack a smile the entire time, and you're like, God, when she does, it's gonna scare the shit out of me. And you're like, oh, but this is like, I think this is
what's
a really
funny?
that's
It
a really
looks like she always has a smile.
yeah. But I think this is a really important thing you brought up, like the banal curiosity she carries with every single person they torture. Like, and yeah, that Nora scene obviously is just a fucking all-timer now, but like every single time Like when she approaches Voight with the fucking contraption in his chest, and she's like it's a fascinating thing to watch Pinhead. Like, it isn't this empirical thing, and I think that's something that Doug Bradley brought to the character that, we just all are like, yeah, of course, that's what it is.
So like, alien to the human experience.
Like, what I like is that like, because the priest, that's like what they call her in the movie. Mm-hmm. I like that it is this sort of disciple of Leviathan, rather than just like, oh, I'm here to bring forth Leviathan. It's literally like, listen, I got my own agency in this bitch, all right? But I'm going to like...
But you see why Pinhead's number one, because so invested in this journey and just adding those touches, right? Like, even shit-talking Voight when he's like, I built a cage.
Yeah.
And Pinhead just goes, all of this for us, incredible, whatever. And I was like, old Pinhead would have been like, how fucking dare you flip that switch.
I'll tear your soul apart. Yeah,
how dare you talk to me? And
it would have been very regal, but
I don't know. Even
it's
just
an incredible
the scenes, right? So like when they're slammed behind the fence, right? And the Cenobites attacking, she turns and just looks to Pinhead. And just that very still image of Pinhead just standing there, it just conveyed so much fucking horror.
Well, that scene where they rip the Chatterer apart, like, that was one of the coolest, like, just Pinhead moments. Is just like, it's this stillness, and then just,
but almost like seems, oh, that's really interesting.
Oh, all right, I guess we got to do it. That's cool.
Nice. Yeah, it's not like how dare you?
No, it's literally like, I'm discovering this as well. Oh, how interesting.
And it also shows you that even when you receive Leviathan's gift of becoming a Cenobite, you're still not fucking safe.
No.
Everything is still on the board when it comes to the game of the box. I don't know. I thought Jamie was just fucking one. And then that final monologue, right? When she's sitting there talking, right? And he's like, just let me die. Gifts cannot be ungiven. What you've always sought is power, right? And the fucking shit's the stupidest device in movie history is falling off of Voight's body. It's not that bad. That part I was like,
no.
How could you have not? We'll get to Voight in a minute. But when they sit there and it goes, our power lies in dominance, anguish, and now it's yours to wield, and then drops the we have such sights to show you. That didn't feel like they're ripping. That felt like a joyous, like if you're in like a church and like a choir singing, you're like, I mean, it's fucking beautiful. Like Jamie dominates this movie. And then that's the other thing though. The thing that Jamie really brought to this movie that was so fucking wonderful, right? That final scene where Riley is confronting the Cenobites. Mm-hmm. And she, I forget how exactly they phrase it. I wrote it all down, right? And you've chosen a life of regret. And then the other one, your suffering has only begun. Yeah. And it's, you live to carry that weight, bitter and brief. She almost seems like, oh my God, I'm sad for you. Like, you should have let us fucking put the hooks in all your holes.
Yeah. Don't you want to see it?
Now. She almost seems like she is sad for Riley. And I was like, what a fucking amazing decision for an actor.
It's just a fascinating performance. And like,
seriously, like 1A, 1B.
Easily.
Right? Like like what if we had seen Jamie Clayton first? Would she have just been our person instead of Doug Bradley? Like, I think it's an equal level performance.
I think so too. I don't think you can compare the two because it's the same character, but they're comparable. Totally the same. They're
both amazing in their own wonderful ways.
Absolutely.
And I honestly was so fucking blown away.
It was
by how awesome Pinhead and the Cenobites were. Same. So as we're wrapping up, right? We have the world's most obvious betrayal, the ruse, right? What did you make of Artist Douche trying to be like, I told you not to take the box, bruh? Right? That line was so... And when you watch it a second time, you're like, oh, literally every scene, you can tell he's in on this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even at the smoking ladies, when she's beginning to unfurl... Serena, right? When she's beginning to unfurl who Voight was and what he was up to, he's like, let's get the fuck out of here. Like, in every single fucking scene, they make it so crystal clear that he is the fucking Judas of the movie.
Yeah.
It was telegraphed, but honestly, it didn't bother me. Because here's my question to you, right? So at the end, he's sitting there, and the plan's unfurled, right? They've tried to save him. Voight comes out and is like, every minute's a fucking problem when you have a fucking meat slicer in your belly.
Right.
And they do their thing, right? And Voight says that line, right? He'll keep doing what I pay him to because this is the best deal of his miserable life. And he sits there, and when he stabs Colin, he's like, you didn't have to do that. And then he says sorry to Riley when she's like, you knew. It's a great moment, right? Even though a very telegraphed moment. Do you think he actually felt regret?
No. I mean, I think he feels regret because he knows he's going to be the one to get axed, but no.
I think there's a small part of him that is like, this is so much fucking more than I bargained.
Well, I
and
think
it throws back to that first scene when they're fucking and he goes, I love you. Was that as spontaneous he actually enjoys her company, or was he already setting her up for the fall?
I mean, I'm not sure about that. But like but to your point, that's what I'm saying is like, I don't think he, like, the regret was, oh man, this was a lot more than I expected. Like, his regret is still completely self-serving. That's all there is to it. Like, there's nothing about...
Also, regret after you've ruined so many lives is, kind of falls on deaf ears, but...
Yeah, exactly. You've ruined everybody else's life, I'm not sure. Like, but...
Oh my God, dude. How about that line when he's like, I don't guess I could get you to reconsider. You couldn't get me to do anything, even if you wanted to. And it's like, bam! The whole audience is like, no, God damn it, Riley, don't open the doors.
There was... Okay, I got to talk about this. This is probably my biggest critique of the entire movie, is the flashback of how Voight ended up with the bread slicer in his chest. Okay, look, I don't have a problem with how most movies do these kinds of things, but like, this is Hellraiser. We see these very elaborate, gross kind of things, and
he's still shaving and putting suits on after 6 years. What the fuck?
But like, we see these elaborate deaths and that kind of stuff, and literally the scene we get is this flashback of like this thing falling down.
It looks like a video game when you earn like a new gun.
Yeah, and then just magically it's in his chest, and you're like, oh god damn it, we just like skipped like really cool shit.
So this is why I think Voight sucks, right? Voight in the first scene, wonderful. Then he just becomes this kind of like pervert boogeyman, right? The chest slicer thing is just so beneath the level of everything else we see. These Cenobites are fucking decked out to the nines, right? Pinhead looks amazing. And then all of a sudden you're telling me one of the 6 boons of your audience with Leviathan, this ancient god, is, you get our little fucking nerve twister.
Right.
Like, that's the extent, because I know he says it's like, it's all a trap. All they have to offer you is pain. Awesome. Love that sentiment, right?
Yeah.
I wanted what I wanted, and it was too much, right? Again, a la Uncle Frank. That was such a piss poor contraption. Like, the lack of invention and interestingness from that little doohickey.
Yeah.
It honestly, it put a little sadness in my heart.
Me too. Like, I mean, here's my thing.
In a movie that doesn't miss much, because this is the thing. The two Voights are a miss. Because one, that's a miss. And then two, right, we get this awesome scene where his chest regrows. We're like, that's great. Only to get rehooked by a Leviathan, so it's this extra fuck you, right? Oh, I gave your body back. Not.
And then he gets... Is he being...
His final scene, he's being made a Cenobite. If you choose the power configuration...
That's what I thought too, right?
That's how new Cenobites are made.
That's how it was in number 2.
Yeah, that's great, right? It's like we never fully understood, like, how do you become a Cenobite versus... Like, Frank seems like he has the resume of a Cenobite.
Yeah.
But no, so I thought that was a great addition. I gotta say, though, by far the lamest Cenobite design. It was cool when they peeled his skin back, but I was like, this is your last image of the movie. The face peeling was great. The eyes blackening was great. And then they pull back, and I was like, My only defense is that maybe this is the start of a very long process.
I assumed it was the beginning of the process.
If that's the case, then so be it. Great final image.
I assumed it was the beginning of the process because like maybe we really fucked up with that chest bread slicer.
If he comes into number 2 and that's what he looks like, that'll be a bit depressing. That was not nearly to the level of the 6 other Cenobites that were like background.
I also like, this is another problem. I also spent like an inordinate amount of time, and by that I mean like 5 extra minutes than I should have, trying to figure out, it's like, how was Voight sitting this entire like 6 years? He's just been like sitting in this house. Like, is he sitting down at all? Like,
that idea is fine. What is not fine was the device they came up with, and that is like, that's one of, if you talk to God and that's like, he's like, hey, I made this thing, you're like, haven't you been here for like eternity? Like, you didn't fucking go back to the whiteboard?
Literally nothing cooler.
You did it like 5 times. You're like, that's pretty fucking lame. You know what I mean? What about like, I'm not even going to pretend that I'm smart enough to like write something better. That was definitely the lamest thing in the movie.
Definitely. By
miles, right? In a movie that is really good, Voight by the end was not my... I liked his like, I want to be a Cenobite thing. That was cool. Because as he's going, no, Pinhead's like, oh, yes. It's like, yeah, fuck yeah. So, again, it's a small quibble. Like, if that's the worst thing about this movie to me, then it fucking nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, even as I'm mad about the device, then we see Leviathan emerge from the sky and descend on the house, and I'm like, that is a top 10 favorite Hellraiser moment for me.
Fucking rad. Fucking awesome.
It was awesome. It was awesome. That's my takeaway. And maybe we're a little bit easier marks than a lot of people because we just did the entire franchise and had to do shows on them.
Right. I don't know.
This is kind of how I wanted to wrap up, though, right? A final love letter to what you like, and then I'm going to unveil the power rankings, the Hellraiser power rankings from the film Alchemist. So my thing was, right, amazing Cenobites, amazing Pinhead, like equally as good as Doug Bradley Pinhead, the new edition of the lore involving the box and Leviathan, and production value. Something that this movie has been sorely lacking. For, I mean, because we looked this up, right? Hellraiser 1 was $1 million. 2 was $6 million. And even then they said that they were held back from some of their grandiosity because of that.
Right.
Then you start doing this like 2 to 3. Hellraiser 4 is $4 million. And then from there, it just starts fucking falling off a cliff into like, I think Judgment was like $300,000.
Jesus.
And it's, again, Hellraiser 1 is a better movie than this on what I'm guessing is this is a $10 to $20 million movie. And that was a $1 million movie.
I'd say it's right between 10 and 20.
But it is nice to, again, see a little bit of fucking muscle flesh behind this franchise, right? So to me, all of the things that were really important to me, this movie fucking dominated, right? And that final line, what happened in there? I made a choice. It was the right choice, right? And we just freeze on Riley's face because she now will live with lament and will never know. And our final image is seeing the birth of a Cenobite. I don't know what else I could have asked for, right? Except for a better fucking liminal device. But to me, I don't know. I was like, of all the horror remakes and kind of reboots, right? I like this better than the Friday the 13th reboot, better than the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot. I really like the 2018 Halloween. This one is better to me, right? So of all the like kind of legacy kind of reboots and this and that, I think this is about as good as you can do.
I mean, I think it's the best one. Like, sorry.
Hellraiser's
I know that's
my favorite movie of all time, and I was so fucking satisfied when this movie ended.
Yeah, this is honestly the best. I mean, it's not, again, it's not like, this is the best reimagining of the original you could ask for. Like, this is a reboot, whatever you want to call it. Either way, it's a better sequel part of the series than literally almost any other horror franchise, short of maybe my favorite, which is Night on Elm Street Part 2.
Yeah, okay, so here's the thing, right? We're going to unveil, we did all of these, our fucking Hellraiser franchise rankings, right? Done by me, but I'm assuming Alex would be pretty similar. If you had beef, call it out, right? So the dead last, the most obnoxiously boring movie in the Hellraiser franchise, Hellseeker.
Correct.
I know a lot of people would disagree.
Doubt.
That is such a fucking just pointlessly boring movie. That does have Kirsty and some cool shit, but not my favorite. Hellraiser Revelation, right? Suffers from Cartman face Pinhead and some very low budget warts, right? Hellraiser Hellworld. Evil Goes Online. Pinhead is a video game, maybe, but wildly fun Lance Hendricks performance and baby Henry Cavill. So that was good enough. Hellraiser Deader. European sex cult and orgy train. No idea what that movie was about still.
Nope.
Then we have... God damn, I can't even read. What is this one? Hellraiser Bloodline. Okay, so Bloodline is part 4. This is our time travel. We see the invention of the box. We see them summon a demon into this lady's peeled off skin.
Yep.
Fun. Not bad. It's your Into Space sequel. Thought it achieved a little more than I thought it would have. Hellraiser Inferno, Scott Derrickson's kind of reimagining to this Twilight Zone Puzzle of the Mind version.
His little Jacob's Ladder action, yeah.
Yeah, fun movie, right? This is the one that no one on earth is going to agree with me with. I think Hellraiser Judgment is a more interesting version of Inferno that attempts to tackle some interesting lore, right? It's essentially the exact same movie, but at the end, Pinhead says, "Fuck you, God," and rips an angel in half. And I was like, that one thing, and then the writing of the sins and eating them as a word soup, I'm like, that's as interesting as most of the other Hellraiser sequels to me. So I have Hellraiser Judgment as number 5.
I'll give you that. It's not bad.
For me personally. All right, then we go Hellraiser 3. This is our action figure, CD head, acid martini shaker.
One of my faves.
It's just fun. God going in, or Pinhead going into the church and kind of being sacrilegious. Fun fucking movie, right? This is where it's hard. Number 1, obviously, is still the original. I think it's still the superior version of Hellraiser to me, right? That movie is just about perfect in my mind. Here's my debate, and you can be the final vote. I think Hellraiser 2 Hellbound, again, expanding the mythology. It's super fun. It has this wonderful return as this Julia monster, which I loved. Does have Dr. Dickhead in it. Not my fave. Has that awesome gnarly mattress scene with the poor mentally ill patient, right?
Right.
Or this Hellraiser. Would you say this or Hellbound is our number 2 best Hellraiser movie?
I'd say it's this one.
You know what? That's what I said too. Specifically because of Dr. Dickhead. I was like, that and like we're just going to kill Pinhead.
I'll be honest with you.
That's a wound that's never healed for me.
I wouldn't even penalize Hellbound for Dr. Dickhead at this point. The reason I would make this version, Dr.
Dickhead is the liminal device of Hellraiser 2.
The reason I would make this the number 2 spot is because of the lament configuration. Like everything about that box sells this movie in a way that none of the other Hellraisers were able to. Even the first one.
Yeah, I think that's
incredible.
It's really well done. Again, it didn't do enough to really leap it over that first one was just like a lightning in a bottle.
No, that first one's too good.
Magic
like
movie.
There's just
And yeah, you know what's funny though? I bet a lot of people this is going to be their new favorite Hellraiser movie.
I think so too.
And I think that's fucking wonderful.
I think that's great.
And I hope this leads to a whole more 10 fucking sequels and like 8 sequels in. Jamie Clayton's like, what are we doing here?
Fuck this.
What are we?
I want to get Jamie Clayton to the point where she's like, again.
Yeah, this made me excited to have 10 more Hellraiser movies of varying quality. I honestly, I loved it, man. I was very satisfied. I thought it was wonderful. And again, I liked it more the second time I watched it. And at this stage of the game, that's a goddamn small miracle, right?
True.
What a capper to our Hellraiser franchise. We hope you guys have enjoyed our deep dive into the flesh as much as we have. You guys know the deal. 31 days, 31 pods every October here on the Old Film Alchemist podcast. So tomorrow we begin our second franchise of the month. We're going through the Wishmaster franchise. That's right, 1 through 4. I think that was our theme this month is hairy sequels. That is what we picked. I personally fucking love Wishmaster, and I'm very excited for you guys to do that journey with us.
I'm not sure anybody enjoys Wishmaster as much as you and I.
That movie is fucking amazing. So, guys, thank you again for your time. Thank you to the team behind the new Hellraiser. Thank you, Jamie Clayton. God damn, that was exciting. I don't know, man. I'm soaring on clouds. When you see your guys get done justice on film, it's a very exhilarating thing. I thought this was a wonderful movie. 4 stars out of 5.
Truth. David Bruckner, you crushed it.
You guys fucking crushed it. All right. We will see you all tomorrow. Make sure you go to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. So this upcoming after Wishmaster, you guys want to hear our Train to Busan episode. You want to hear that. Go to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. Support the show. Help yourself out. Thank you guys in advance. That's it for us. Bye.